Hey, what is up guys? This is Brett here from BrettDev.com. Now, 6 months ago, I sat down with a very good friend of mine and a business owner out here in Chiang Mai. His name's Ash and he came to Thailand 13 years ago. Since then, he's created a graphic design agency right in the heart of Chiang Mai. He employs like 9 Thai staff and he's got just a really interesting story overall. Now, I recorded this video 6 months ago. I'm only posting the interview up now because I just had a bit of trouble editing it. The sound was a little bit off, had to do some tweaks and things like that. What Ash basically does is he does PowerPoint, like Microsoft PowerPoint design for companies back in the West. And it's something that anybody can really get into. So I asked him, will you sit down with me? Will you do a workshop with me and explain how people can get into this? So if you like this interview and you know, after you've finished watching it or whatever, you think, okay, that's amazing, that's something that I could probably do, then there will be a link in the description and at the top left corner of this video where you can find out more and you can actually watch the part 2 of this interview, which is a workshop with me and Ash. I plan on posting a lot more interviews like this to the channel over the coming months, so if you like them, make sure you give them a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy the video. Cheers. Okay guys, so we are here, just stepped into Ash's office. I'm sitting down here with Ash Pempleton, and Ash has been in Thailand for a very long time, right? So, move the mic there so you can hear me. So Ash, how long have you been here and what year did you move to Thailand?
Yeah, I've been, this is now my 13th year in Thailand. Originally, I told my family, because I felt terribly guilty about running away from England, I told particularly my nieces at the time that I was coming for a year. And it's just carried on and on and on, and I don't think now I'll be going back.
Yeah, and what interesting circumstances this is, and this is why, like I said a minute ago, I like doing these videos because, you know, people come here. Everyone that I meet that lives here, same story, they come here for a year and then their lives just take like this drastically mental turn, which like, if you'd asked yourself 1 year before the year you came here that this would be your life 13 years later, you never would have believed it.
Sure.
Right, so what motivated you to, what brought you to Thailand originally in the first place for that year? Was it a holiday or?
It all started with a holiday. It was actually a lad's holiday.
Right, okay.
And one of my friends booked it. Didn't really have a clue what they were doing.
Right.
We all just followed suit, didn't really check what they had planned and what they'd booked. Turned up, stepped off that plane in Bangkok, got hit by the heat, got hit by the smells.
The Bangkok smell.
And just what an amazing difference to anywhere else that we'd been on holiday before. And for me, it wasn't long before I just realised that this is quite a special place.
Yeah.
Just overwhelming sense of freedom, I would describe it as. That was the one thing that, still to this day, is the thing that I love most about Thailand.
Yeah, I always say it's kind of like you take responsibility for your own life.
You do. There's also,
you know,
there's quite a big sense of karma running through Thailand. So some people don't vibe with it. Right. Some people find everything frustrating or weird and horrible things happen to them. And other people, you can just let them go. And they just have the most magical experience, you know, like buying things that they would never have been able to afford, meeting people who just like took them in and loved them and cared for them and were generous to them. Yeah. So you get 2 types of traveller in Thailand.
Yeah, it's definitely true. You get some, you're right in what you're saying. You get people that are kind of come here and go nuts and hate it, and then other people that just get on absolutely fine and love it.
Yeah,
it's almost like a love it or hate it.
I think so.
Sort of,
yeah,
you know?
I think some people just are treated with amazing generosity, and people here have more time. You know, it's less pressure, less stress, and of course, it's just that general sense of smile and freedom and happiness.
Yeah.
Like if you're that type of person, if you vibe with that type of environment. Then I think you get it. But if you like quite pressured or want things to be happening the way that it happened or the way that you knew it should happen in the Western world, then potentially you'd be banging your head against the wall.
Yeah. I always say to people like Thailand's a good place for like an introverted person.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Just because all the Thais are introverted.
Possibly. Their culture is more introverted.
Yeah, so with me, what I hated about England was just
like how in your face everyone was all the fucking time.
Sure.
And it done my head in. And when I come here, no one's in my face. It's nice.
I describe it as Thai people don't just tell you what they're thinking. They don't like if you do something that they don't like, potentially they'll just ignore you or they'll just leave you to your own device. Whereas in England, if you do something that people don't like, there's someone that's going to tell you.
Even if you do nothing, they're going to tell you. Like,
and my best example of that is road rage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great example.
So here, I mean, people drive crazy. You know, big truck drivers. Crazy drivers on the road, the lanes, you know, you've got to have flexibility with. If a car's bigger or faster than you, you just let it through, either on the inside or outside.
Yeah.
But in England, if you drive like that, you're going to get followed. You're going to get stalked. You know, it's just a completely different culture. And I kind of use road rage as the best example.
That is the best example.
Yeah. Because it just doesn't really exist here.
No, I've never seen it.
No, and I think because everyone has dark window screens. You know, there's just an element of like you don't even look in, you're not even judging them. You know? It's just like you just let it go. You have to.
I've got angry sometimes, but I've never like road raged out. Like, I'd be worried if I did. Like other Thai people would jump out the cars and start attacking me or something. I wouldn't do it anyway.
I think in my early years, I was put onto the fact that
only when I'm like nearly been killed.
Well. People do get killed here. Yeah, and bad things do happen here. When I say it's free and it's easy and it's lovely and it's sunny and it's happy, still bad things happen here.
Yeah.
So I would say that Thai people generally, they're not just going to start a fight, but if you really do them wrong, they might just kill you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the big difference. There's like no middle ground. It's like, just don't offend people. Just let people be and they'll let you be.
Yeah, it's like a nice balance. But take us back, man. So, you moved here 13 years ago, and we're going to kind of talk about what you do, but like, I guess, what were you doing before? What were you doing before you came here? Because now we're sitting in his really nice office. He's got like this 3-story office in Nimman. You employ like how many people?
I have 9 Thai graphic designers.
9 Thai graphic designers, and again, this is super interesting because with so much of the stuff I talk about on this channel, and with people wanting to move abroad and work online, it's a bit of an odd one because most people are doing this digitally, where they're doing it just from their laptops, kind of what I've been doing for the last 5-6 years. But you've been doing it actually set up shop.
Yes.
So we're kind of I want to kind of circle back and get to how you have this shop here, but take us back to like beforehand. So you were in England before you moved to Thailand. What were you doing? And how did you come? Like, if we can kind of start there and then we'll kind of work our way forward.
So I was a freelance graphic designer working from home 13 years ago from my kitchen in Stoke Newington, London.
Right.
Freezing cold because I didn't have enough money to turn on the heating, and my flatmate was like, I go to work all day, you're not having the heating on all day unless you're paying for it. So I'd be there with like fingerless gloves, and a scarf and a hat and like a little tiny heater under my desk because it was just freezing cold, like working through the winters. And I'd be doing graphic design, but I'm not a classically trained graphic designer. I call my skill PowerPoint design.
Right.
And what that means is it's kind of like a bit more businessy. It's more corporate, and it's more about hitting deadlines and getting work done with good service rather than being artistically brilliant.
Okay.
So I'm not artistically brilliant. I've worked with great designers, but I think the reason why my clients like me is because I understood their work and I had good customer service. I was reliable. And that's kind of like what this company has been built on. It's kind of like my culture, my service levels in a company. So jumping back, I would work from home in England, and I asked my boss at the time, can I work from Thailand? And they said, yeah, sure, but as long as you work English hours. So nobody at this stage had the foresight to see what has become my complete unique selling point, which is working with the time differences. So I work for management consultants, they're workaholics. At, say, midnight, that's the latest that they could send me their work. They go to bed, and because I'm getting up in Thailand at 6 or 7 hours ahead of them, I'm working when they're sleeping. And I wish I could tell you that I planned this or that I had the foresight to know that this was going to be like the big thing that made a difference to my life.
Yeah.
I didn't. So I said I'd work nights. I couldn't. I'm a morning person. I like to get up and get it done. But it was pretty soon before they realised, actually, you're working when we sleep. In England, that's called the graveyard shift for like a presentation team. No one wants to do it.
Right.
And normally you should pay time and a half or even double time for that shift. So as a result of that, I became, I'm going to say like 5 times more in demand working from Thailand than I ever was working from home in England.
Right. Is this working for the company you're working for in England?
Yeah, I took my job with me.
Right.
I took my job with me, yeah.
And then now that's kind of, like you say, your unique selling point for this business.
Yeah, and it's all grown from that original opportunity, from that original job where I was a graphic designer, doing the job of one person, moved abroad, started utilising the time zones, and then suddenly it's like, oh, here's more work. Oh, you can deliver this by 8 a.m. the next day, which is, for my market, a massive, massive bonus, you know, the fact that they get it done overnight, next day, 8 a.m. delivery.
Yeah,
it's quite unique, especially with management consultants.
Yeah.
They love that service.
Right, that's really cool. So you moved here. Where did you come straight to Chiang Mai or?
No way.
Where did you live?
No, I would never have come straight here.
Right.
This is like, so I'm 45 now, so I was 32 when I first came.
Right.
Chiang Mai was not appealing to me at 32.
Right.
I wanted to be on the beach.
Right.
I wanted to be like in tropical part of Thailand, which is the south.
Yeah.
So my mission was to find somewhere affordable on the beach with a great view, but had to have fast internet.
Right.
And basically, my wife and I travelled around and we went through everywhere, every bit of Thailand.
Were you married back then?
I got married, 13 years ago.
So when you first got here?
Yeah, so not quite like that. That sounds quite bad. So I came here, met my wife. In fact, this might be quite an interesting story for your viewers, because I had a very, very good friend here, and he gave me like the insight to Thailand. He'd made every mistake possible.
Right.
He'd invested his life savings. He'd like met the girl. He'd started the business. He'd bought the truck.
Right.
And
Toyota.
yeah, and like the classic is, how do you get a small fortune in Thailand?
It's not a big one.
Yeah, and that was his story. So he really helped me. He helped me along the way. And when I met my wife, girlfriend at the time, I'd already heard stories, you know, about Frang meets Thai, and you know, you have to support their family, and like, do you really trust them, and are they just telling you what you want to hear, and is it really love? So I said to her, look, I would love to have a girlfriend like you. I'd be like, fall in love with you, but I'm just a bit unsure about the cultural difference. So here's my proposal: come back to England, live with me for 3 months, meet my family, meet my friends, and just let me, and I didn't say it like this, but let me put her through like a series of tests.
Right.
It's like, can she handle my dad, for instance? Like, can she integrate in English society? And originally we thought that we would live in England.
Right.
So after about 6 weeks of knowing her, I filled in the application to get her a visa to England, and instantly it was a no.
They wouldn't let her?
No way.
Right.
But you've known a Thai girl 6 weeks, and you want to try and get her into England. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And what the UK government did is they wrote me a letter and they said, look, if you want this to happen, these are the criteria that you've got to fulfill.
Right.
And the main one was prove that you have a genuine relationship. Like, so there's the financial stuff, and there's like home ownership and jobs. Like, I had to prove all that stuff, but that was relatively straightforward. The big one was prove that you have a genuine relationship.
Right.
I'd only known her 6 weeks, and that does not clarify it as a genuine relationship.
Yeah.
So it took us 6 months. I went back to England. We talked on, at the time, it's MSN, like MSN chat and video. Yeah. And then when I reapplied after 6 months, I said to her, well, maybe you can just show them the 6th month log of all of our chats. I said, but please edit it, right? Because there's some fruity stuff in there. She didn't. She just printed it all out. It's like this big. She gave it to the English embassy, and they were like, "Well, yeah, you've definitely got a relationship." So Kim came on what they call a Fiance Visa.
Right.
After 6 months of being in England, they wrote to me and they said, "You either marry her or she goes home."
Okay.
And I suppose when I applied for the visa, I kind of knew that was coming, but I just ignored it. I just did anything to actually get her in the country.
Right.
And then after 6 months, you can imagine I had a decision to make.
Right.
And I just knew that I didn't want to leave her.
Right.
I knew that I wanted to be together, but was I ready to get married? No way.
Right, and that was when you were in England, yeah? So you got married in England.
Yeah, and all of that was to get Kim residency in England and a work permit in England.
Right. With the goal of living there?
With the goal of living there. In fact, the plan that we had was if we lived there for 8 years, she'd actually get a British passport. I'm not sure if those laws have changed now. I think they make it a bit harder.
Right.
But 13 years ago, that was the case. You know, live in England, go through the visa process. 8 years' time, you get a British passport. So we lived like that for a while. But really, we missed Thailand.
Right.
Kim missed Thailand, although she loved the opportunity to earn money in England.
Yeah.
I'll always remember that. It was like a lot of money. She got a job in a Thai restaurant, and just the tips alone were just like
tons more.
Way more.
Yeah.
But ultimately, getting married in England has really made my life easy here. You know, because now I have a spouse visa.
Okay.
And because like people can tell that we're in love when we go to get the visa's done. Like all the immigration are all very smiley, and I've got 2 kids, and we used to take our kids along to immigration too, and they'd sit there smiling and go, "Yeah, there's your visa." Like everything visa-wise has been very, very easy because I'm married to a Thai.
Yeah.
Setting up this company is very easy because it's in my Thai wife's name.
Okay.
She's the 100% shareholder.
All right.
Well, actually, I think you have to have 3 other Thais owning 1% each.
Right.
And that's her sister, her brother-in-law, and such like.
After you got married in England, what made you want to come back and live here? Obviously, you just missed it and stuff.
Big time, yeah.
And was the plan to come back and live here and keep working were you still doing the same job at the time?
I had to keep that job because that was my livelihood.
Right.
That, at the time, funded absolutely everything.
Right.
Yeah, so I brought the job with me. I had my laptop.
Yeah.
And I suppose I was an early digital nomad, you know. We had enough money to rent a motorbike. We had my laptop on my back. Actually, in those days, I had to carry a black and white laser printer, because at the time, my clients would fax me.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, they'd fax me amends. That's how it worked. So I then subscribed to this service called eFax that would convert a fax into a PDF, and then I'd print it out.
Right.
Because I didn't have 2 screens. I just had my laptop and the PDF, and I'd make the amends, send it back, and the management consultants in those days would actually print it out, mark it up, fax it. Like, what a way to work. But that's how it was back then. Yeah, so I just had to do anything possible to just serve those clients with what they needed, which was a graphic designer on call that would work the way that they wanted to work.
So back then, were you doing like freelance PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's always been PowerPoint.
Right.
So even when I was 21 or 2, I was still able to get a job as a freelance PowerPoint designer in London and also in Sydney. Those contracts were available, and there weren't many people doing it.
Yeah.
And you can also get jobs in like big London banks.
Right.
They would employ what they call 24/7 global presentation teams. So there'd be like a group of 20, often secretaries that liked designing, or young kids like me that just saw the hourly rate and thought that's good money and I can use PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So you didn't need to be like a brilliant designer. It was all about the service and just being there to do the process work that they needed doing.
Yeah, it's a really overlooked freelancing skill, actually. Like, everybody, when they think of freelancing, they think, I've got to be a programmer or do something really difficult, or I've got to be a brilliant, like you say, artist or something. There's lots of little things that, like, if you just niche down and specialise in them, you can do.
Definitely.
You know?
Excel is another big one.
Yeah.
I think if you're an Excel specialist, I think you get work.
Yeah, for sure. So then you moved from England to to Thailand, and then how did you come about setting this business up here? Like,
Sure.
did you start with this office in Nimman?
No. So I worked as a freelance and then employed, basically doubled the model. I employed an English guy to help me with the amount of work that I was getting. And then it was time, like, we now still have more work than we can do, two of us. So I always had ambitions to grow, and I was like, what can I do to grow this company? And at the time, I wasn't really that aware with like the remote working culture. It was still pretty new to me. Although I was part of it, I didn't realise you could just go out and employ people remotely on the internet and build contracts with them and work that way. So I was convinced that I wanted to employ Thai designers. I knew I didn't want to live in Bangkok because it just didn't work for me living there. I found it quite a lonely place to live.
Is this where you were at that time?
At the time, no, I was in Koh Chang, Koh Samui, tried Phuket, tried Pattaya, tried Rayong, like all the way along the south, tried everywhere just to try and find the dream place to live. But when we had children, we always went back to Bangkok to work, and I knew that my time there wasn't good enough. You know, I just didn't want to be in Bangkok. I didn't like that. That city just didn't work for me as a family man or as a businessman. So I thought to myself, where am I going to find the best Thai graphic designers that I can afford to hire full time, and that I actually want to be myself, like a place that I want to be myself? So Chiang Mai jumped out to me, and that was about 7 years ago. So I wasn't ready for Chiang Mai until I had kids, until I wanted to settle down and get an office and kind of scale up and employ Thai people. Before then, Chiang Mai just didn't have enough for me, and it didn't have the sea and the beach.
Yeah, some people need the beach and stuff.
Well, it's hard to be in Thailand and not enjoy the beach.
Yeah, I just find if I'm near a beach, I'll just go there for like one day, and then I'm like, can't bother to go back.
Do you know what? There's some truth in that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. When we lived in Samui, we hardly went to the beach at all until we knew we were going to leave, and it's like, oh my god, let's go to the beach every day. Yeah. So the last month we went every day and missed it. You know.
Yeah. I don't like just sitting around doing nothing either. So like, I'll go there, and if I ever go to the beach, I'm only ever there for like an hour, and then I just bored. Yeah,
I'm not a sitter arounder either, but I like to walk on the beach. But more than that, I think I like to see it. I think I like to be close to the water and have a view.
Well, I'm from Southend-on-Sea, so I've had a beach my whole life.
Pebbles.
Yeah, pebbles and shit. Cool, so you've only been here for 7 years. I didn't realise that. I thought you'd been here for much longer than that.
Yeah.
When did you set this company up?
So the company is 10 years old.
Okay, but you came here, got the office.
Yeah, and then really, I probably wouldn't have moved to Chiang Mai if it wasn't for Nimman Road.
Right.
Nimman Road held all the magic beans. You know, it was like cool shops and cafes. It's quite arty. It's like the creative centre of Chiang Mai. And it just appealed to me. Like, there weren't really any bars outside of Nimman or any life outside of Nimman that excited me. The night bazaar has energy, right? But once you've been there a few times, it's, you know, it's not enough. But Nimman just had the energy and had the people and like had nice restaurants, and it was very easy for me to live here.
It's quite westernised as well, Nimman, so I guess you get a bit of that. Like when you say if you go to the night bazaar or something, there's energy, but it's kind of like every other market in Thailand. It's very just Thai market energy.
Yeah.
So once you've done that, you've done it.
Yeah.
You know, with here it's quite would it be? What could you compare it to? Kind of like it reminds me of Nimman. Reminds me of, you ever know Friends, where they like hang out at the coffee shop and stuff. What's that little downtown area? They live in New York.
Oh, I don't know.
It's very like hipster coffee shop area.
Yeah, I don't know the area.
That's what this reminds me of.
This is, but you've nailed it with hipster and coffee shops, because that's what this place is.
Yeah.
But it's also creative. It inspires creative energy here. A lot of the creative firms would live here. A lot of the shops are quite creative.
Yeah.
And the food, the cafes.
Yes.
It's very westernised, right?
Yeah.
Which for me means I can make it home. I don't know if you've ever immersed yourself in proper Thai culture, have you?
Not necessarily.
No, because I have the dear friend that I was telling you about at the start, he really immersed himself. So everything was Thai, like no English signposts, nobody speaks English, no English food.
Yeah, driving mad.
He used to eat duck bills on the roadside.
Right.
And, you know, he then had to learn business Thai to a very high level just to be able to survive and to run his business.
Right.
But in the end, it drove him mad.
So he created a business like in Thailand serving Thai people.
His business was import-export. So we would, I actually partnered with him for a while. He would buy things like mango wood home furnishings, bamboo baskets, Benjaron royal porcelain. So he'd be buying them from Thai suppliers and then shipping them and selling them overseas.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a hard business to run. And you know, like I say, he immersed himself in Thai culture, and in the end didn't last that long because he went a bit stir crazy. Whereas my solution has always been like to pick places a bit like holiday resorts that I feel comfortable, that I can get some of the things that I know I like, you know, and I can meet people that I can converse with and make friends with.
Yeah, that's a big thing I think here for a lot of the Westerners that live out here in the expats. Everybody I know, like yourself and my friends, like everyone has like a big circle of friends. I find a lot of the Westerners, like I have a huge circle of friends and acquaintances here that in England I never had.
Right.
And I think it's just that. I think a lot of it just to stop you going crazy. Like, because where you all day long, you're not really speaking English when you go out to any restaurant or anything, and it's just, and you're away from your family as well, who you'd normally be speaking to a lot. And I think that's an interesting thing about expats when they move here. They all just have like lots of friends and stuff. You find that
people are friendlier, right? Because they want to make friends.
Yeah.
But also Chiang Mai is quite a small place, right? If we do a little Facebook, what mutual friends have we got in common?
Yeah,
it's going to be high.
Yeah.
And I find that with anyone that I meet in Chiang Mai, you know, it's very rare that we don't have a friend in common. And I love Facebook for that.
Now, this is something that I'm sure lots of people have lots of questions about. You know, the idea to come over to here, start a business and actually hire Thai people to scale your freelancing opportunity, which is exactly what we're talking about that you've done.
Yeah.
I mean, how easy is it my first thought would be, can't do that because people in Thailand speak Thai. It'd be impossible to work with them. It'd be impossible to do any communication. I'd need to hire somebody like, for example, from the Philippines where they speak English really well. So instead I'll go on Upwork and I'll get a freelancer from the Philippines.
I agree.
You know, a lot of people think that.
Yeah.
But how was your experience hiring Thai people?
Yeah. So if I'd have planned this, like I say, I didn't. It's just kind of all come about for me. If I'd have planned it, probably I'd have gone to India. Maybe I'd have gone to the Philippines.
Okay.
Because then I'd have got better level of English, maybe lower wages, and I think things would have been simpler. I didn't want to live there.
Oh yeah, okay.
I wanted to live in Thailand. I'd fallen in love with my Thai wife and with this country. So I just didn't really give it an alternative. There are some really good recruitment, some really good places to recruit Thais. So there's one called Jobs North, and we always used to post on there. And we found some really good people. So we would ask for a certain level of English proficiency. The interviews were carried out in English. All of our work comes in English. So finding that level of English proficiency in Chiang Mai with like 25-year-old Thai graphic designers, there's a good selection. There's a lot of people that fit that profile.
Right. I think another thing is people are very hard on Thais, especially like old expats and stuff. But it's
Big
like,
time.
You know, their only interaction is with like some drunken tuk-tuk driver, and then they kind of say that all Thais are like him. But you know, there's a lot of intelligent Thais. This whole university city, like you said, there's a huge pool of people that speak perfect English and stuff, and they're quite smart. You know?
Actually, that's why I targeted Chiang Mai, because of the universities. Although I didn't want a university graduate, I wanted someone that had 2 or 3 years experience working in a creative agency, just so that they'd know that, you know, they'd finesse their skills and they understood the office culture. So the reason why I didn't go remote and the reason why I set up an office is I felt that I would need to put my arm around them and guide them and kind of train them. Certainly in their 3-month induction, it's not a job you can just pick up and run with. You need a lot of support, you need a lot of help, you need people that can understand the work. So it's myself and my co-founder, we would take on that role. We would work with the Thai designers. They would actually do the design work, but there's one of us here to check the briefs, to check the work before it goes back.
Right.
And that's been quite successful. Now, whether or not this is a fair reflection of Thais or if we've just been lucky, but we have amazing staff retention.
Right.
Quite a few of my designers have been with me 5 years, 6 years. It's pretty rare that people just leave, you know, after 2 or 3 years. Some people leave after a week, some people leave after 3 months. Okay. But once they like the job and they understand the job, we have really good retention here. And I just share actually with the audience one other trick that we did.
Yeah.
Now, my Thai staff, the team, decide who to employ next.
Oh, cool.
We give them that decision.
Right.
So we've really empowered them to make those choices for themselves. And like we're sitting in this office now, and the 2 English directors both work remotely. This office is their office. Right. They've taken it over, they run it their way. Yes. They have a team leader, they've built their own structure. Like we have some systems in place, and we have a good server that we all can work from and communicate in.
Yeah.
But they've really taken on this role and taken on this business and started to do it their way, which is just so pleasing for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's such a unique perspective. Like I said earlier on, it's like, you know, a lot of people are thinking about how do I start a freelancing business online? How do I go completely remote? And just the fact that you've done it here and just set up like an actual office, started employing Thai people. I don't think I really know anybody else here who does that. You would think more people would do it, but they don't.
No.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and then I remember when I first met you, I immediately started thinking, maybe I could do this. You know, so hopefully the people that are watching this today, if they're, you know, it's just a different angle, different perspective.
Yeah, I would say that the wages in Chiang Mai for a really talented graphic designer that can speak English and that has experience, the wages are about $1,000 a month.
Right.
So my business model can afford to take a chance on that. Like if we were working in England, I'd be paying 2 or 3 times that. If we're working with American designers, maybe even more, right? But the market is such that we could take a chance. You know, we can put someone on a 3-month trial, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't break the bank. You know, so I think that was a big factor in me taking a chance. In that, you know, have a look at how much we're charging our UK-based clients. Work out how much you're going to pay a graphic designer that you can, you know, you get a good one, like not a fresh grad or not someone that doesn't speak English. We've cherry picked some real design talent, and we've paid them enough to incentivize them to stay.
So what would you say to people who, you know, perhaps looking at this video and they're saying, you know, I'd like to live in Thailand, I'd like to start a business in Thailand, you know, that have reservations about it? First thing I would say is clearly, like, opening a bar is not the only business you can have in Thailand, which is what a lot of people think. You know, they come here, nobody really pays attention to other businesses. What advice would you give to those people that are like watching this from their home country, like, I want to move to Thailand, I want to start a business, how would I go about doing it?
I'm going to put myself out there now. I'm going to say, find someone who's done it and lean on them. Right. Most people here are pretty damn friendly, and if you approach people in the right way, and it's happened to me quite a few times already, where people have said, I'm really interested in what you're doing, please can you help me, please can you just at least guide me, or, you know, direct me into the right path, like where did you recruit from, or do you know anyone that can do this? I'd say don't battle it alone. Don't try and do it on yourself. Find someone that you can ask for a bit of expertise. Find someone that's lived here a few years, like ourselves, and just ask the question. Say, look, please can you help me? Please can you direct me? So that would be my advice, really.
That's good advice. And how can, actually, before we finish, Ash has been kind enough, before I recorded this video, I asked him if he'd actually record a separate video with me talking about kind of how somebody could get into this industry. Like at the beginning of this video, we talked about PowerPoint and how it's kind of a really, you know, pays well, but it's something that a lot of freelancers don't think about. So Ash, what me and Ash are going to do after this video, we're going to sit down, we're going to record another video for those of you who are interested, and I'll link to that in the description, where Ash is going to kind of dive more in on the technical. So if that's something you're interested in and you go like, yeah, I could do that, Ash is going to kind of tell you how you could do it. But other than that, how can people get in touch with you? I mean, your website is Overnight.Design,
Yes.
or is it Design S or Design?
No, it's dot design.
Design.
Yeah.
Overnight.Design.
Yes.
Not .com.
Yeah, previously known as PowerPoint Designers.
Yeah.
But you can find my URL in overnight.design, and on there would be a link to email me.
Okay.
I'm also pretty active on Facebook, LinkedIn.
Right. Well, thank you so much for doing that, buddy.
Pleasure.
And yeah, like I said, we're going to be doing another video, so check the link in the description. Hopefully, if you're looking at coming to Thailand, if you want to start a business, I know this is not just a walkabout, hopefully it's going to help you. You know, you can watch content like this, you can be like, yeah, I'm going to do what that guy does, and it can actually change your life. So, thank you very much, man.
Cool, man.
Cool.
Pleasure.
Take care. See you later, guys. Peace.